Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee for Brownsville Public Utilities Board to order. We have a quorum. Do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
No public comments? Okay, then we'll go ahead to our regular agenda. Item number 1, presentation and discussion of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board Financial Performance Report for the period ending September 30th, 2024.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So my name is Mike Perez. I'm Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be providing the financial performance report as of September 30, 2024. These are unaudited numbers. We'll start off here with the executive summary. It does focus on 7 different categories. Each category has its own gauge meter. Red representing poor, yellow average, and green is good. Starting off with the flow of funds, PUB did generate $18.8 million to replenish the improvement fund year to date with a debt service coverage of 2.85. So this is well above the 1.25 times max minimum requirement. So we're doing well. The fuel purchase and energy charge to generate an over recovery, it has allowed us to maintain a low FPEC rate at 5.019 cents per 1,000 kWh. This was a 20% reduction from the previous month, so we're doing great, doing good here. The COB cash transfer is higher by about $1.9 million over than budget due to some increases in adjusted gross revenue. So good information, good information for the city of Brownsville. So on the personal expenses, those are pretty much in line with our budget. While our non-personal expenses did come in a bit lower from budgeted, primarily due to timing issues. It is currently at about $6.3 million below budget. The BPUB's average bill came in lower than both the average MOU bill and the average IOU bill for 1,000 kWh user. Our current average bill for the 1,000 kWh residential users at $111.26.
What's Magic Valley at?
They were 31 cents cheaper than us, but for November they did drop it an additional $10. They're at $100.95.
Wow.
So they usually react to our bill, and so that's probably why they reduced it. On the CIP spending side, we are still lagging behind. We've spent $36.23 million year to date, representing 39.5% of the fiscal year 24 approved plan. We do have a separate presentation on CIP at a later agenda item. And we are currently in compliance with all key financial metrics. Here we've got a condensed statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. We are comparing and this is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We are comparing the current year actual to prior year's actual same period. So starting off with operating revenues, $236,034,000. This represents about $39.6 million below last year's level. Year-to-date sales did increase. This is our base revenues. Did increase $3.7 million over last year's. But we did see a decrease of $24.6 million in the fuel revenues, and this is a direct offset on the expense side. We did see another decrease of $10.6 million in off-system energy sales. Last September of 2023, we had like $12.5 million in off-system sales compared to $2.5 million this September. So that's contributing to some of the difference here. And then, of course, we did use about $9.5 million in the fuel stabilization account to pay down the customer's production costs for the month of November and December of 23 as approved by the board. Moving on, our year-to-date expenses were $202,699,000. This represents a decrease of $20 million from prior year. And the majority changes in this category includes a decrease in the fuel. That was at $24.6 million. We did see an increase of $5.8 million in personnel expenses, and that was due to the implementation of the compensation study. And then an increase in depreciation expense, $900,000. A decrease in repairs and maintenance of $1.7 million. So this brings us to line 3 operating income of $33,335,000. Once we back out the non-operating expenses of $14,960,000, we end up with income before capital contributions of 18,374,000. That big drop in the operating expenses from last year represents the Tenasca Equity Fund distribution that was issued back in May of 2023. Once we add in line 6 capital contributions of 9,938,000, we end up with an increase in net position of 28,313,000. Adding this to the net position at the beginning of the fiscal year, we end up with a net position, unaudited net position at the end of the period of $480,922,000. Moving on, we have got a condensed summary of revenues and expenses on the flow of funds. This is based on the bond ordinance, in accordance with the bond ordinance. We compare the current year actuals, but now we compare to the year-to-date budget. So operating revenues of $235,878,000, or $2.1 million under budget. And here again, base revenues increased $11.9 million, while fuel and all system sales decreased $14 million. Other revenues year-to-date were $26,561,000. These were $5.1 million above budget. And this really represents some additional ancillary services in the ERCOT market, along with increases in the interest earnings from what was budgeted. We had budgeted $6 million. We came in at about $8.4 million in earned income. Gross revenues, $262,439,000. Once we back out the fuel and SRWA expenses of $85,591,000, we end up with adjusted gross revenues of $176,848,000. This is the basis for the city of Brownsville's 10% city calculation. And so the city is entitled to $17,684,000. Once we back out other requirements of O&M, non-operating expenses and debt service of $124,235,000, and also back out the COB usage of about $6,048,000, we end up with a balance available after requirements of $46,523,000. Once we back out the transfer to the city net of the usage of $11,595,000, we end up with the balance available for BPUB usage or transfers out of $34,927,000. Those funds were then used to fund our budgeted CIP of $16,090,000, leaving a balance of $18,837,000 to replenish our improvement fund. So overall, we've had a good year. That concludes the financial performance report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, presentation discussion by external auditor Burton McCumber Longoria LLP on progress update on BPUB's fiscal year 2024 audit.
Yes, so here with us today is Mr. Jose Diaz. He's the audit manager with Burton McCumber and Longoria, and he'll be providing the Finance Committee with a progress update on the BPUB's fiscal year 24 audit.
Good afternoon, Board. Just want to report that we started our field work this week. Everything's going as planned. With the interim procedures that were performed last month, this month we're starting with our procedures on the financials, balance sheet, income statement. So as of right now, everything that was agreed upon has been provided to us on a timely basis, and I mean your team's been great to work with. What we've been asking for has been answered and given, and that's the current status. We're hoping to wrap up the majority of field work by the end of the month, pending just small little adjustments here and there that usually flow through December, right? But right now, it's working, it's going on, and as planned and as projected. Any questions? No. We have sent our questionnaires to the board, so you will be getting follow-ups in case it's still pending.
Small request on that. Can you have your questionnaires be something we fill in electronically, so we don't have to print, sign, scan, and send?
I can look into that and see to make it better, but I'll check what we can do and have that like I understand it's better to just more efficient, but I'll look into that.
Small
Okay.
request. Thank you.
I have received my questionnaire, returned it, I guess
Okay.
this morning, but yeah, so everyone should have received.
Okay.
I only got one.
It's one questionnaire and a cover letter from PUB.
Yes.
That might have been it.
Yeah, it's all in one PDF. I told staff, put it all together. Don't be sending 3 at a time. Just send one and just one at a time. Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, item number 3, presentation discussion of all payments made to the city of Brownsville for past 5 years. Mike?
Yes, so Mr. Chair, members of the committee, so at the October 2024 board meeting, we made a presentation on the open City of Brownsville invoices and projected reduction of cash transfer. We reported on the established procedures for the collection of COB invoices. We also reported the total outstanding invoices total $256,417.60 as of October, right? So on October 28th, the city did pay invoices totaling $228,984.87, representing reimbursement for the lid pole attachment application review cost. And so this left an outstanding balance as of October of $27,432.73, representing 3 different work orders. The city has claimed that payment for this remaining work order balance is pending finalization of the MOU for shared services. We do have a scheduled meeting with city staff this afternoon, later this afternoon, around 3:15, to discuss that MOU. So during the presentation, board member Mr. Martinez did ask about BPB's procedures for paying city invoices. And so with that in mind, we did prepare this presentation. So the city of Brownsville invoices PUB for a variety of activities and events. Invoices and payments are processed timely as part of the normal accounts payable process. These payments fall into a variety of categories, including the following. We got the city street project utility improvements. This is where the majority of the expenses. These are not expenses to reimburse or payments for city services, really, but really for reimbursement of contractor expenses on the utility side. So. We also have the Brownsville Employee Credit Union support. We have an MOU that created a partnership between PPUB and the credit union, whereas PUB pays 1/3 of the city manager's and CEO's salary. That's been in effect for a while. The credit union was established back in 1970. BPB joined its membership in 1983, and when the credit union was really was not very successful, and so they needed our membership. BPB currently makes up about 31.72% of the current of the credit union membership. We do have staff currently reviewing financial statements for the credit union just to determine if the need for us to continue paying 1/3 of the CEO's salary is still needed. So we'll report back on that at a future date.
I'm surprised that organization is not self-sustaining.
That's exactly what our thoughts are. So we've asked for those financial statements that haven't been provided, but we'll be reviewing that just to ensure that we can make those changes.
What services do we get for ratepayers' money that goes into that?
It's just banking services available for our employees and our retirees. Really. One of the other things that staff has been asked to do is to do some comparisons with the the services that are offered through the credit union as compared to maybe some other banking institutions or other credit unions to see if there's a real benefit there.
Right.
And so that's stuff that we will be looking at.
Yeah, I would imagine the overhead's very low. I mean, they don't have a lot of locations or anything like that, no branch network.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
support.
the city of Brownsville does pay for 1/3 of the CEO's salary as well. The other 1/3 gets paid from the credit union itself. The salaries for all the other employees are paid by the credit union. The city also provides office space and some IT support and some other support that they provide the credit union. But
Yeah, it's a very valuable service, I mean, but again, I'm surprised that it's not self-sustaining.
exactly.
They don't pay federal income tax, they have very low overhead. I'm sure they have like minimal losses or actually 0 losses.
Those are exactly our questions that we've been posing to the credit union. So as we get more information, we'll look into it. Okay. Moving on, we do participate or pay for some event sponsorships to City of Brownsville, and we'll see more detail at a later slide. We got landfill fees. We currently have a memorandum of understanding for potable water treatment plant filtration sludge. We're paying them $15 per ton. This was entered back in September of 2010. And the MOU is good for 20 years, and it ends on September 2030. Now, we've also been starting on August 2023, BPUB is taking the wastewater treatment sludge to the landfill as well. And the city considers that special or special waste. And so that's being billed to PUB at $36 per ton. We do not have there isn't an existing MOU for that particular function. On the resaca sludge disposal, we do have a memorandum of understanding for the watered sediment, and we're paying the city $15 a ton. That particular sediment is being utilized by the city as beneficial alternative daily cover at the landfill. So they have a benefit for that, but we're still paying the city $15 a ton for that. Street patching, there is no MOU for this. We only have a letter from the city for the agreed upon price. The city is billing PPB $45 per square yard for street patching. The city is changing their paving strategy to mirror that of TxDOT, where they're going to be patching at a minimum 15 yards or 15 square feet for each patching. It pretty much takes up the whole lane, to the middle of the lane to the site. And so that could practically triple our cost up to about $1.5 million. And that's just something that's just initially getting started. So something we'll be looking at.
So on the street patching, so they're billing us for damage that the utility
Well,
makes?
as we go in and we make utility
Yeah.
adjustments or repairs,
Yeah.
we call the city, they come in and they patch afterwards.
Do we know that this is the lowest possible cost service?
They say that they're providing this to us at cost, but it doesn't seem so. We've done some analysis as we started working on the MOU with the city of Brownsville, and what we noticed is that their annual budget is about $400,000, and you'll see it as a subsequent slide. I think we paid over $500,000 to the city for street patching just in fiscal year 2024. And so with that logic, they're not following PUB 100% of the time, right? They have their own projects that they're working on, so it's telling us, it paints the picture that we're paying above cost.
This is Mark Dombrowski, some add on that, so that currently the patch size was 15 foot by 15 foot was the minimum size patch. They changed their standards now to 45, I believe. So our cost.
No. Actually, right now it's less than 15. They're going to go up to the 15
Okay,
minimum.
So we're expecting our cost to triple, given the minimum size patch. So I think we have about 400,000, I think, in the budget. So it might go up to about 1.2 million.
So we're going up, you said, from a 5x5 patch to 15 by 15?
Yeah,
15.
it's tripling.
Well, it's tripling in one dimension. In
Like
two
it's a square.
dimensions, it's 9, so we're going up by almost an order of magnitude. So it's worth checking and seeing if we are, in fact, if there are any savings we could get to the ratepayers. While still maintaining, of course, the TxDOT standard that the city's adopted.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a cost-benefit analysis and figure out whether it might be beneficial for us to develop our own crew
Yeah.
that can do the patching. So, but it's something we can look at. That, or maybe see what
Yeah, no,
a
but-
contractor.
I was going to say, it's worth at least asking what a contractor would do, so we can at least say, hey, yes, this is the best price, or
Yeah.
no.
The city had done some sort of analysis, and they came back when we had those discussions about the $45 per square yard. They had said that the market value, or the contractors out there, are actually charging $70 to $75 per square yard, and so it might be more expensive if we contract out, but it's something we can look at and then confirm ourselves.
Yeah, at least then we know.
Okay. So moving on, we've other payments that we're making is for radio and Acela subscriptions, the broadband plan, event center rental, advertising, records, checks on employees, and there was a renovation that was done from city staff on our PB facilities as well. So here we've got a the summary of city payments by category for the last 7 years. We can see that in fiscal year 2024, we paid the city $4,885,778.89. I mean, the majority of that, of course, was the COB project utility improvements. This is really just to reimburse the contractors, the 2.8 million. Next, the landfill fees, 677,000. And here we see the street patching for fiscal year 24 at about $514,000. So some significant dollars there. And here's a 7-year detail history, so we can see the various payments that are listed for the street projects, as well as the different sponsorships that we've paid the city for. As mentioned earlier, we process all of these invoices for payment on a timely basis in accordance with BPB's accounts payable procedures. This concludes our presentation. We do intend to make this presentation to the full board
So
next
I
Thursday.
think one of the questions everybody's going to have is, we have the remedy of withholding, you know, money from the cash transfer. I mean, that was part of the agreed upon procedure with the city, right? What remedy does the city have if we don't pay our bills? Not saying you won't, but.
Right. The only remedy there would be for them to just withhold services, not stop servicing. Like we're calling for a street patch, and we were delinquent on our bill 60, 90 days, that they might say, no, we're not until we get paid.
What is our time to pay roughly? Is it 1 week? Is it 30 days?
I mean, as soon as we get the invoice, it just goes through the process. Normally, 30 days.
30 days.
Those invoices get paid within 30 days.
That's all I got.
Okay.
I do have a question. Would you like to add anything else for clarity for the board? I think this was questions that we're trying to ask, and I know this is just a one-slide 7-year history. This was just information for you all to have. Is there anything else or detailed that you want us to add to the presentation when it goes before the full board? We're about to finalize, and we can add potentially modifications until we meet next Thursday.
That's fine. I think it's
That's,
good to go.
thank you.
Okay, item number 4, presentation Yeah.
Actually, I thought of one thing. Yeah, if you guys could just, you know, so that we're not guessing on whether the city pays too much, if you could just at least ask. See, you know, and you may not have any information by then, but, you know, just say, hey, we're at least looking into what a private contractor would cost. Small detail.
So just to get that straight, you want us to ask the city what would happen if we withhold payment?
No.
No,
I mean,
okay. I'm okay with that.
let's open a can of worms. Okay. No.
No, okay, so
Just
just advise them that we are looking into.
for, the road patches, just so you know, we at least aren't speculating.
So in other words, if they can informally bid through our purchasing department and ask a couple of paving contractors how much an annual contract would be for as-needed services for patchwork throughout the city of Brownsville,
Yeah.
an RFI.
We can do that.
Okay, next item, item number 4, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board's utility financial reserve policy.
So yes, I'll be presenting a draft of the new utility financial reserve policy. This was presented to the Regulatory Policy Committee on October 30th, 2024. So our policy really here is, in order to maintain stable rates and provide reliable service, BPUB must maintain appropriate financial services which can absorb short-term financial variability resulting from unexpected operating results, or can reduce the need for debt issuances. Right? So this policy will ensure that BPUB maintains adequate reserve levels for the purpose of providing sufficient cash flow for daily operations. So without these reserves, any unforeseen emergency expenditures can deplete BPUB's operating funds, thus hindering BPUB's ability to pay for its ongoing daily operations. So this reserve practice is looked upon favorably by the rating agencies and can have a positive effect on BPUB's bond rating. So this reserves also offset significant economic declines or revenue shortfalls and demonstrates a commitment to long-term financial planning objectives. So this policy identifies 6 different reserves, 4 of which are required by bond covenants, and so those 4 required reserves are fully and adequately funded. Starting off first, we have the operating reserve, and this is to meet the day-to-day maintenance and operating expenses. It is set at a minimum of 60 days of budgeted O&M expenses. So based on our fiscal year 23 audited numbers, the minimum required would be $15.1 million, and we have just over $17 million in the account, so we're fine. Second, we've got the senior lien reserve. This is reserved for payment of senior lien obligations, and really the very last payment on the bonds, right? And so, and it needs to be the least of 100% of the annual debt service, or 125% of the average annual debt service, or 10% of the initial principal amount of outstanding senior lien obligations. And so what happens to be the least is the 125% of the average annual debt service, and that amount comes in at $17,191,539. Now, our current funding for this particular reserve is a combination of cash, in this case, $15,810,000, plus some surety policies that we have in place from the 2005 and 2008 bond series. And so those fully cover the $17 million, way in excess. The reserve is a lot significantly higher, so we're doing fine. Third, we've got the junior lien reserve, and this is for the payment of junior lien obligations. It needs to be at 100% of the average annual debt service, and that happens to be $112,057,000. So we're just a little over that amount. Lastly, we've got the capital reserve, and this is to meet the capital project funding requirements with a minimum balance of $15 million. We've got $15,992,000 as of the end of September 30, 24. So here, any questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, on junior lien reserve, you have 112,000?
Yeah.
531.
That's
Right.
what it is?
Excuse me?
That's what it is?
Yeah. We currently have about $400,000 outstanding on the on that junior lien reserve. These were some Texas Water Development Bond funds that were issued for wastewater improvements to the FM 511 Colonia project sometime back. And so, yeah, the balance right now is negligible at $400,000. So this, here we've got the 2 new reserves that we want to establish. The first one here is a decommissioning reserve. This will be adequate funding for decommissioning BPUB's power generation plants, right? And so, as you all recall or remember, the fiscal year 25 budget that the board did approve $2 million to go for funding in this particular purpose. Our targeted level is a minimum of $10 million to a maximum of $15 million. The initial funding is going to come from the net revenues that are produced by the system, and we intend to fund this within 5 years. So $2 million per year, 5 years, and we should be there. The second one is the power supply stabilization reserve, and this is to mitigate fluctuations in the net power supply cost. Funding, minimum funding is at 90 days, and then maximum funding at 120 days of net power supply costs. Net power supply costs for this coming year were at $88 million, and so our target level to start off is between $22 million and $29.3 million. Here again, the initial funding it needs to come from the net revenues of the system. We intend to fund this within 10 years. Now, any funds that are spent from this reserve to pay for those production costs, any high production costs, will need to be replenished from the fuel collections. Right. And so this draft policy has been reviewed by our executive staff, our financial advisor, bond counsel, and we also present, like I had mentioned, we presented it to the Regulatory Policy Committee on October 30th, and they did provide some recommendations as well. So we did incorporate the red line copy with those changes in the as part of your packet. These changes include some additional language to the definition of a capital reserve, change to the funding requirement calculation for the operating reserve. We added language for temporary suspension of contributions to the reserve in case we we see that we don't have sufficient net revenues to cover the reserves, so we have the option to stop and then restart against once those net revenues are available. We added language to replenish to the replenishment timeframe for the senior and junior lien reserves, and we changed the funding requirement for the power stabilization reserve from 5 to 10 years. Now, the funding levels are based on our fiscal year 23 audited financial data. We do intend to measure compliance of this reserves with the policy on an annual basis as part of our budgeting process, and so this policy will be updated and brought to the board approval on an annual basis. This policy will also be presented to the full board on November 14th for approval. Do y'all have any recommendations? I don't know if you had the opportunity to review the policy. No? We'll present it for formal approval
Very good.
next week.
Okay, item number 5, presentation and discussion on year-to-date capital expenditures as of September 30th, 2024.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jorge Santillan, Finance Manager. We're going to be looking at the end of the year results for the approved fiscal year 2024 5-year capital improvement plan. This is the combined utilities summary by category section. And looking at the grand total line at the bottom, in column C, again, the approved plan for FY24 was $91.7 million. The unaudited actuals at the end of the year, column D, was $36.2 million. On column F, the completion percentage at the end of the year was 39.5%. Just to compare for comparison purposes, the previous fiscal year, FY23, we ended up total actuals were $28.8 million, and the percentage completion last fiscal year in 23 was 31.2%. So we did better compared to the previous year. Of course, there's a room for improvement, and hopefully we can improve those numbers in next fiscal year. And also to point out that at the end of the year in 2024, the total POs balance was $33.2 million. These are commitments on projects or services or equipment. So we're committed to those expenses. Right now they're commitments only, but we plan to hopefully pay those POs the majority next fiscal year, if not the subsequent years. Any questions?
From an accounting perspective, does this roll over to the next year, like the unused portion, and added to the new budget? Or how does that work?
Yeah, the projects are analyzed, and any of those projects that are ongoing will roll over on the CIP plan, budget plan.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, item number 6, presentation, discussion on status update of Brownsville Public Utilities Board, other post-employment benefits trust.
So, good afternoon again. So, I'll be providing an update on BPB's other post-employment benefits trust. Here's the agenda. I'm going to go over some background. I'm going to reflect back on the actuarial report as of September 30, 2023. Look at the performance in 2024, and then talk about some plan distributions. So on the background, for your information, PUB offers some post-retirement health care benefits for eligible retired employees. There's 3 criteria that need to be met. It need to be at least age 60 with 10 years of consecutive years of active service, or at least age 55 with 25 consecutive years of active service, or at any age having completed 30 years of consecutive years of active service. So, Governmental Accounting Standards Board statement number 75 requires that the full liability of the OPEB, or the other post-employment benefits, OPEB, be recognized in the balance sheet. It requires a full actuarial evaluation to be conducted at least every 2 years. And GASB 75 also allowed entities to set up a special trust for future payments of the OPEB. So prior to setting up a trust, benefits were paid on a pay-as-you-go basis. PUB was contributing approximately $550,000 in premiums into the self-funded health insurance plan, and then the plan would pay all the claims for those retirees and active employees. During that time, BPUB had proactively been setting aside $1 million per year to cover the future OPEB liability. And we did accumulate about $13.3 million in that fund. In 2022, we started exploring the idea of establishing an irrevocable trust for BPUB's OPEB. RFPs were issued, and in November of 2022, the board did approve the selection of Public Agency Retirement Services, PARS, as a trust administrator for the OPEB trust, utilizing Vanguard Investments as an investment advisor. So that was one of the options, right? So the initial contribution into the trust was $13.3 million. That was made in May of 2023. Now, this year, on January 31st of 2024, BPUB staff was notified by PARS that Mercer Investments had entered into an agreement to acquire Vanguard. Mercer was not going to be maintaining a governmental plan presence, and so we needed to find an alternate investment advisor by April 1 of 2024. There wasn't enough time to go out for an RFP for a new investment manager, so PARS collaborated with U.S. Bank. They are the custodian of the assets of the trust, and their wholly owned subsidiary, PFM Asset Management, to provide investment solutions designed to maintain the same type of investment advisory services as Vanguard. So the board did approve the transition to PFM on February the 12th of 2024. At the time, the board did direct us to report back on the status of the OPEB plan within 6 months. And so that's what we're currently doing here today. Not working? So here, we're just reflecting back on the actual report as of 9/30/2023. The total OPEB liability at the beginning of the year was at $14,815,000. It did drop to $12,591,000, primarily due to the plan changes, and the use of a higher discount rate since we had set up the trust. And so the market value of the assets of $13,194,000 at the time did reduce that liability. And we ended up with it being overfunded by 104.79%, and therefore we reported an OPEB asset on the annual comprehensive report of $602,950. Here we've got the performance, the OPEB performance as of September 30, 2024. Current balance now is at $15,942,786. So a little perspective here. Since the last year, the plan has performed very well. Year-to-date earnings for fiscal year 24 were $3.1 million. This represented a return of 23.57% for the year. The plan did also pay out $43,621 in plan fees and $294,000 in distributions to cover retiree claims for the first 3 quarters. Here we've got some additional dashboards showing the value of the plan over the last 12 months, along with the gains and losses for the last 12 months, the percentage return, and the monthly fees that were paid out during those 12 months. At the initial start, when we first set up the trust, we had to choose between 4 asset allocations. In our case, we ended up selecting the balanced strategy, right there, the third to the last. This particular strategy asset allocation is at 60% equity with 40% fixed income, with the goal to provide a moderate amount of current income with moderate capital growth. This is similar to what the Texas Municipal Retirement System does. And so, as mentioned earlier, before setting up the trust, benefits were paid on a pay-as-you-go basis. Now that the trust is set up, it pays for the retirees' health care cost. Beginning in fiscal year '24, BPUB is requesting reimbursement from the trust for the retiree claims on a quarterly basis. You know, in fiscal year '23, we elected not to request any plan distributions from the trust. That we were just waiting to see what the actual evaluation came in at to determine funding status at the end of the year. So the total health cost distributions from the plan for the first 3 quarters totaled $294,000, as mentioned a little earlier. The retiree health cost distribution for the last quarter came in at $316,326, and we just, that's, I believe it was last week, we submitted a claim for that. So our total retiree health cost distributions for the fiscal year totaled $610,327. The premiums paid into the self-funded health insurance fund are being funded by BPUB for the retirees and are being reimbursed to BPUB's plant fund from the distributions received. So in other words, the $550,000 that we're paying into the self-funded health insurance plan in premiums are being reimbursed as we get reimbursed from the claims from the trust. And so that's one of the big benefits of setting up an irrevocable trust, is that it starts paying for those claim costs on the retirees. And so we benefit in the sense that we no longer have to pay those premiums into the fund. Again, the plan is doing very well, and we do expect it to be overfunded again at the end of the year, meaning that we don't have to make any additional contributions to the plan in fiscal year 2025. Any questions?
Who determines the asset allocation?
The investment manager. In this case, it would have been PFM. How,
I mean, do they,
using their,
don't they have to get your approval on the?
oh, no, they do. I mean, we're the ones that selected a particular strategy
Right.
for the balance strategy, where it goes into 60% equity and 40%.
Okay.
There's a whole lineup of investments that they take into account.
Last item on the regular agenda, presentation discussion on the sale of retired vehicles and equipment to the city of Brownsville.
So yes, I'll be presenting this item as well. As part of our annual budget process, the departments request replacement vehicles and equipment units. A determination is based by a committee that's formed on the condition and repair history of the existing unit, whether to proceed with procuring a replacement. When the new vehicle and equipment is received and placed into service, the old unit is then retired. So approximately once a year, we hold or conduct an auction, either in person or online. This past year, I believe, was basically online, to sell those retired units. The city of Brownsville has previously expressed an interest in having first choice to acquire some of the retired units before they are being placed into auction. And so we did reach out to the city back on September 17th. They did come in, or some city staff came in on September the 24th to review the units. They later sent us a list of 16 units that they were interested in acquiring. From October the 4th to the 24th, staff did research the value of those units on multiple websites. We did seek the advice of legal counsel to ensure that the sale would be in full compliance and with all applicable laws and statutes, and we're waiting some response there from legal. We haven't sent out this list of units with the prices to the city yet. These are the units that were requested, showing the fair market value and the source of the pricing. Those units came in at about $162,078. As mentioned earlier, we have not forwarded any of this information to the city of Brownsville, and so at this time, we're just requesting recommendations from the committee members as to how to proceed. We will be taking this item to the full board as well next Thursday, just to get the full input of all the board members. Are there any recommendations from this committee?
I do want to state that in the past, we were asked for a monetary contribution for the Dignity trailer, and we did identify one that was going to go into the surplus, and we've already transferred one vehicle into the City of Brownsville's fleet. It's not yet in operation yet at the City of Brownsville, and the intent was that because it was a transfer instead of the $10,000 cash donation, the vehicle went there. They were going to put like a wrap or something with the PEB logo, donated made possible in partnership with the City of Brownsville. This is a completely different type of request. This is something that I'm not sure how they're going to utilize within their own fleet. These are assets, you know, for the system of the utility, and how we dispose of them is intended for the ratepayer, which is why we're coming to the board to understand what the wishes of the board is. If we were to transfer for $1, I know they have to have a certain monetary, I'm going to defer to legal, or for the monetary value that the selling price is there. The pricing, what I understood and reviewed with staff, was this is the cheapest that we found on the website. In other words, there's ranges. We should have probably put a range of what it actually is in the selling prices that we've seen. So this is, we feel, is fair. And some of the websites do change between the date of the week that you're looking. Sometimes I've seen it as high as $225,000. And so right now, the pricing that we're showing, and Monica and I have been in communication a lot about what the prices. But if the board wishes for us to transfer them, then we will adjust the letter accordingly.
I think just having that language for the board would be good. By the way, just bravo to whoever got a pickup truck for $14,000. I mean, brand new. That's pretty good.
Any other comments or questions?
Oh, that was in 2000.
Okay, any other questions? No? I think that's
Yeah,
very good,
this
thank you.
is Paul Gonzalez. Typically, this is through auction, and one piece of information that this is part of the retirement of surplus stuff, broken desks, chairs, vehicles, things that are just not they've exhausted their useful life to the utility. So that's why they're typically going to auction, and this was a possible off-ramp for certain items of particular interest to the city. I don't know that we have the typical return for the annual auction process, like how much typically comes in. I'm sure that information could be provided. But one aspect of this is it's a process. We're handling it, and we're trying to get it out, right? So there are different ways of the utility getting it off our property and off the books.
Okay, thank you.
One last item, I did hear from the county. The county was looking for a retired bucket truck, and so that's a request, is something that we're still working on. If there is anything in the remaining fleet there, then we will probably bring something for if there's going to be an interlocal transfer or payment or things of that nature also. But Cameron County's office did request for a bucket truck as part of the surplus equipment for their use.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. That's it for the regular agenda. We have two items in our closed meeting agenda. Item number 1, discussion of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board quarterly progress on natural gas hedging strategies and power supply, section 551.086. Item number 2, presentation discussion of information upon pricing of purchased power generation and fuel and their impact on the fuel purchase energy and marketing charge, section 551.086. I have a motion to recess into closed meeting.
I'll move to recess.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
The time is 12:50. Time is 1:08, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it's, time is 1:08. We are reconvening into the open meeting. There was no actions taken in our closed meeting, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.